I remember my mom always tell me a story, at nighttime. Given such a time that very poor, that's very violent. I still lived through the war.
One of the results of the Khmer Rouge and what happened here is that people have, by necessity, come very self-preservation focused.
The Khmer Rouge resulted in the gradual devastation of over 25% of Cambodia's population in just 3 short years. The once peaceful country was ravished and invaded by Pol Pot and his regime. This was one of the worst human genocides that the world has ever seen. Pol Pot envisioned the creation of a new Cambodia based on the Maoist communist model and wanted to restore the country to an agrarian society based on Maoist ideals. Pol Pot sent thousands of children and parents to different labor camps all across the country.
And there are a lot of issues with PTSD and the results of that. So really high domestic violence rates, really high alcoholism rates, especially where I was in Swarian, he drank.
Of course, the camp is a good place to live because the camp for the refugee case, they are way away from the battle in Cambodia. We have been captured and kidnapped to join with their work, especially in Khmer Rouge. Later on, in the 3 years, 8 months, 20 days of Pol Pot, I was in the mobile team. We worked to build a dam, to build a canal, farming, everything. The work was okay, but the food, it was terrible.
What happened here was essentially 25 years of civil war, plus this crazy government by the Maoists, the Khmer Rouge, who basically killed anyone who had higher education.
So they didn't have a lot of professionals and elderly people that were educated to really influence the country.
It's kind of like going from generation after generation. It's kind of contagious. Why? Because the education was not there to change their life. That's why I see that education is very important. Caring for Cambodia, first when I saw JP's speech on TED Talk, I got goosebumps. What she does is my dream. She made my dream come true.
She came here like many of the expats come here, and you live so close. I'm going to go see Angkor Wat and tour the temples, and you'll hear this straight from her in her videos that she's produced. But basically, she was at a temple, and a little girl was asking her for $1.
Now, kids have been asking me all morning to buy a scarf, buy a book, buy this, buy that. This little girl said, "Ma'am, can I have $1?" And I turned and looked at her. She was about 8 years old, little disheveled thing, so tiny and so dirty. I just stared at her and I said, "What do you want the $1 for? And what's your name?" She said, "My name's Srey Lin, and I'd like to have the $1 to go to school." And her English was perfect. As I looked at her, looking into her eyes, I realized at that moment she was not asking me for $1. She was asking me for hope.
And so Jamie basically said to her, "Well, tell you what, you take me to your school." They're sitting there with broken pencils and the teacher wasn't there, and she couldn't forget it. She couldn't forget it. So when she went back, to Singapore, she was on a mission. She was on a mission to do something to help this country. And she brought along a bunch of us.
For now, we have about 6,000 students total that CFC are supporting each year. Again, like I said, there's still a lot more to do, but we do it step by step.
So I think what's really good organization, number one, and part of our tagline in the early days, up until fairly recently, like within the last few months, was "Let's see it through." And the whole point was, there are a lot of people that come to countries like this, and then they get inspired to help. But then they help and then they go away and they don't stay. The theme for us has always been, let's see it through. Like, we're not going to just turn back.
What they do is amazing, how starting from the baby. Among all the programs at Caring For Cambodia, to me, what I think is the most valuable is the Head Start program.
So we have these preschools that are in the villages around the primary schools, that feed into our kindergartens, that feed into the primary, that feed into the junior high, that feed into the senior high. So kids can go all the way from essentially birth to grade 12 with CFC programming. And statistics will show that if you have a child enrolled on time, age 5 or age 6, they're more likely to graduate high school. So that's been a huge success, particularly for CFC taking a whole community, whole person approach. We try very, very hard to get the parents involved. They're learning about how to enhance their child's development. They're learning about how to have better communication in their home. They're learning about health and hygiene. They're learning about gender equity. We face a lot of challenges because of the post-conflict society. A lot of the parents don't have education.
តាកូនស្រេចអានេះគំនិតនៅលើកូនគ្រាន់តែប្រាប់កូនតែមួយម៉ាត់ថាម៉ាក់គ្មានអ្វីចែកកូនទេមានតែចំណេះវិជ្ជាកូនប្រឹងបានប្រឹងចោលប្រឹងមិនបានលើកូនទេខ្ញុំមានតែប៉ុណ្ណេះឯងអ្នកគ្រូប្រាប់កូនចា
So that's hard. It's hard to raise a child in an environment where maybe the parents didn't receive an education, or maybe even if they did, they didn't feel that it affected their future. So why keep a child in school when they could be earning a living elsewhere? The Minister of Education has said that the cost of education hits the parents in two ways. There's the direct cost of purchasing uniforms and books and transportation and school supplies and food, and then there's the indirect cost of the lost labor of that individual. So CFC works extremely hard to tackle those direct costs.
We pay for building the buildings, we pay for the electricity, the water, the teacher salaries, the school supplies, the uniforms, the food. And the other component that is really critical, that really makes Caring for Cambodia stand out, is one of the first things we did was the teacher training program.
For me, having come from teaching in another public school, in a government high school down south, the differences are so vast because the government isn't quite able to do what they envision. We really try to get the government schools from where they are to where the ministry wants them to be, and that's been very successful. In terms of classrooms, so where I was teaching before, you don't have tiled classroom floors, the desks are broken and they have to be rearranged around the termite hills that have come up in the classrooms. There's no ceiling, so the bats are in there. The chalkboards are so old that it's hard to write on them. You're struggling to find chalk, and there are absolutely no resources on the walls. Another big difference at the secondary schools has been that in most government high schools, you have a student-specific classroom. So like 10A is in this room and 10B is in this room. Whereas with CFC secondary schools, we've created subject-specific classrooms. So you have history in here, and you have biology in here. And even though that's a ministry guideline, it's what the ministry says is supposed to be happening, there are a lot of different limitations that mean that that's not.
And now the Minister of Education in Cambodia has decided that CFC is the model school for the rest of the country.
កាលពីបាក់ថងខ្ញុំបានធ្លាប់ចូលជាក្រុមប្រឹក្សាកុមារដែរប៉ុន្តែកាលពីនៅពីក្មេងគឺចំណេះដឹងយើងនៅទាបដូច្នេះការដឹកនាំសិស្សគឺអត់ដូចឥឡូវប៉ុន្តែនៅពេលឥឡូវយើងចូលជាក្រុមប្រឹក្សាយុវជនលោកគ្រូអ្នកគ្រូក៏បានចូលរួមក្នុងការដឹកនាំទាំងជួយចូលរួមសហការជាមួយក្រុមប្រឹក្សាយុវជនធ្វើឲ្យក្នុងនាមខ្ញុំជាក្រុមប្រឹក្សាយុវជនទាំងសិស្សអាចយល់ច្បាស់ពីគុណសម្បត្តិតើសាលារៀនយើងមានអ្វីខ្លះហើយលោកគ្រូអ្នកគ្រូក៏គាត់អាចយល់ដឹងពីសិស្សយើងអាចយល់ដឹងពីគ្រូដូចគ្នា
So you ask our kids what they like most about CFC, almost always top of the list is that they're proud of where they study. And the fact that the school, that the government, that CFC has invested in that environment for them makes them want to invest themselves in their own future.
Very optimistic population, very open-minded, changing very fast. They're very different than their parents. No direct knowledge or really memory of the Khmer Rouge era.
So CFC works extremely hard to tackle those direct costs. We'll provide bicycles to the students. We'll provide uniforms. We'll provide school supplies. We provide the food program. but it's that indirect cost of education that we can't really hit. So the way that we address it is by bringing the parents in at every possibility to talk about why their kids are there and how it can change their lives. Our library program manager has created a community reading event. So the parents will come, like she invites the parents of grade 2 and grade 3 students to come to the school, and all the kids will sit out there with their favorite storybook, and if their name gets read, they stand up in front of their peers, in front of their parents, and they read aloud.
ចាខ្ញុំមើលទៅដូចរីកចម្រើនច្រើនដែរព្រោះខ្ញុំទើបនឹងភ្ញាក់ខ្លួនដែរកាលគេអញ្ជើញពុកម៉ែមកឲ្យកូនដែលប្រជុំកាលនេះណាចាខ្ញុំឃើញខ្ញុំទើបភ្ញាក់ខ្លួនពេលនោះឯងតែខ្ញុំដែលដឹងថាកូនខ្ញុំរៀនដល់ប្រកែកដល់ថ្នាក់នោះឯងទោះបីតែញាតិគេថាអ៊ីបរៀនកូនបានល្អថាខ្ញុំមិនសូវដែលនៅបានបរៀនកូនទេខ្ញុំទៅព្រៃបាត់ខ្ញុំទៅតាវាតលេណាអ្នកគ្រូតាកូន
នៅថ្ងៃអនាគតខ្ញុំបាទចង់ខ្លាយទៅជាអ្នកអភិវឌ្ឍជនបទមួយរូបហើយមុខវិជ្ជាដែលចូលចិត្តសិក្សាបំផុតនៅក្នុងសាលារៀនគឺភាសាខ្មែរភូមិវិទ្យាប្រវត្តិវិទ្យា
I think also the people who are the recipients of what Caring for Cambodia is doing, they are so grateful and they're so passionate about the mission and what they're trying to do to improve the education in the country and improve their lives. When we first started helping out in CFC, you would ask the kids, well, what do you want to be? You know, I want to be, a tour guide, or I want to be a tuk-tuk driver, because they didn't really know anything else, and there was nobody to teach them because all the professionals were gone.
And now we have a student at Iran who only 11th grade who want to study international relations. And we have the student who want to study the rural development, who want to study management, who want to, like, you can see, like, some of the students come and talk to me, teacher, I see so many problems in our community, in our country, but I don't know how to begin. What career should I choose? I think my ultimate goal, my long-term goal is that one day, I'm not sure when, but down in the future, I want to come back to Cambodia. I'm not sure I'm going to build a school or what, but I'm going to do something that relates to education. I'm going to teach the children because that's what my mother loves. And I wanted to do that to honor her, that what she gave me is what I wanted to give back to other people.